Thank you. Good day, everybody. I don't know what time it is. Yeah, anyway, nice to see you all. Welcome to the Global Think Aorta meetup on the 19th of September, which is Worldwide Aortic Dissection Awareness Day. We're really glad that you can join us to celebrate what is the biggest day of our year, actually, for those of us involved in aortic dissection work. And we're just going to take an hour. This is all about updating you on the Global Think Aorta program. There is such a lot of exciting activity happening literally around the world today with aortic dissection and with Think Aorta. So we're glad you could join us to find out about it, join in the party, understand more about the campaign and who's doing what, and learn about how you can get involved and do things with Think Aorta in your country. So that's what the hour is about. I'm Gareth Owens. I lead the Global Think Aorta campaign, and we'll introduce you to some other folks around the world as we go on, who are going to tell you how they fit in. Let me first share with you our agenda. So let me find my slide deck for that. That's this one. And here we go. So the idea today is to meet the Global Think Aorta team to celebrate Aortic Dissection Awareness Day. We have going on right as we speak in Brazil, the launch of Pense Aorta in Brazil. I'm going to hear more about that in a minute. We want to find out how Think Aorta is making a difference in the UK and in the US. We want to find out about the launch of Think Aorta in Spain and Catalunya, learn how you can get involved with Think Aorta, understand how you can bring it to your country, and just generally get informed and inspired to save lives with Think Aorta. So that's what we're about today. I have a wonderful team of colleagues with me from around the world, and I hope you enjoy the next hour and leave buzzing about Think Aorta and wanting to get involved. I literally came back an hour ago from the south of England, where we had an Aortic Dissection Awareness Day event in Bristol on Thursday. Think Aorta was front and center of that. And we had a lot of national leaders present to talk about how do we improve the diagnosis of aortic dissection in the emergency setting here in the UK. And we had about 100 people with us in Bristol. We had about 200 people watching online. And out of that, we have real national level momentum to do Think Aorta here in the UK and take the campaign to the next level of implementing change in emergency departments. That's what it's all about. So I'm going to tell you a bit more about that later. But for now, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to hand over to my colleagues to tell you what's happening there. So let me do that. And I'm going to hand over, I think I'm handing over first to Karen Anderson, who is leader of Aortic Hope and also leads the Think Aorta US campaign, to talk about all the exciting stuff that's been going on in Think Aorta US. Karen, go for it.
Yes, it is a huge collaborative effort, and I'm just going to go over a little bit about the two different hats that I wear, and then other people from the US are really going to be able to fill in and add a lot of valuable information to how we all come together and think aorta. So Aortic Hope is a more post-diagnosis patient advocacy group. We really help survivors and caregivers during the recovery and management of aortic disease. So we come in on the backside after diagnosis and really help people wherever they are in the process. We also offer a forum for individuals that are strictly caregivers, as well as individuals who have unfortunately lost loved ones to this disease. We do this in a variety of ways. However, one of the things we do is what we've realized is we are always thinking aorta in everything that we do. And back in 2019, we came together with two other organizations, Aortic Bridge being one of them, and really wanted to figure out a way to take on the proactive nature of aortic disease. And we did so in helping to bring the Think Aorta campaign to the US. And again, all of this crosses the dividing line between proactive and reactive. But we did this in initially rolling out the campaign after tweaking it to suit the US's needs in a poster drop to the ED departments across our country. And now after that, of course, COVID hit. So we were a little stuck as to how are we going to get a messaging across when all of the ED departments are overflowing. So we moved into a little bit more of a strategy of just kind of keeping the idea of Think Aorta and the importance of it on a just low speed, basically. So we were having t-shirts, we had masks, which made sense. We also had magnets that we were just kind of, well, Ben was putting a lot of them on ambulances in the area, and we were sending those out to the same doctors and just kind of trying to hopefully keep the concept that's been so well received about thinking aorta alive during this time period of COVID. What we've come away with now is we're realizing that for us, it's not just about aortic dissection and preventing it. It's really how far into the future can we go in being proactive. So this really comes down to a Think Aorta, Think Family campaign, meaning we are trying to promote the idea of having patients and survivors and caregivers and community members really sit down and talk to each other about aortic disease and about any illnesses and diseases that they might have in their family, and kind of begin to have those dots put in place and hopefully have a physician connect the dots. And the end goal would be obviously having some screening done sooner than later in hopes of identifying anybody in the family with aortic disease so that we can prevent any catastrophic events in the future. So taking the Think Aorta, Think Family, I'm going to let Ben talk about that a lot more, but one of the other initiatives I know, Gareth, you're going to talk about that Think Aorta has taken on is our aortic awareness cards. And so these are postcards that the receiving hospitals can have that basically they can then hand out to the smaller regional hospitals to kind of increase potentially the diagnosis time and just cut down maybe on the transport time and all of that paperwork, and let them know, hey, if you have somebody that you believe is having aortic distress, here's a number that you can give us a call and we'll help you go through that process. So we're constantly looking for ways in Think Aorta to be as proactive as we can. And this for us goes beyond just dissection. We're taking it back even further. We're going to try to take it back to the earliest stages possible. And what Aortic Hope does is it promotes that, because we are talking to all of the patients and survivors and caregivers, and they can then self-promote and advocate to their physicians. And we have other individuals on with us today that also think aorta. So I'm going to pass the baton now over to Ben. There you are. I had to look at my screen where you were. And I'm going to let Dr. Ben Udelman take it from here and talk a little bit about Think Aorta from his perspective.
Well, thank you so much, Karen. And I really have enjoyed our collaboration tremendously. In terms of the changes that were necessary in order to get more traction in the US with regards to the Think Aorta campaign, there were two major issues that we really had to get over. One of them is that, to a large degree, what is taught in medical schools and subsequently regarding aortic disease is really a very narrow and a very unfortunate focused campaign regarding patients who we see pretty rarely, whereas the reality of it is that it's very much more broad than we thought. And just to give you a sense of some of the tendrils of what the Think Aorta campaign has led to, and unfortunately so has COVID, one of them was a sort of ad hoc screening program that we did during COVID, because every single patient who came to the hospital with suspected COVID got a CAT scan. So we did a survey of all the aortas and found that something close to 14% of the aortas that we saw were in the abnormal range, or greater than 4.1 centimeters, which is far larger in percentage than anyone ever expected. Now remember, this sample is from Brooklyn, New York, where we have people from all over the world, and not some of these focused studies that have been done in various countries, and we're going to be presenting that next month, and we're going to be publishing it probably in 22 in order to give you an idea. So that has really led us to go to the proactive campaign with a lot of guns drawn. And one of the issues is that even primary care physicians don't appreciate that if someone has an aortic dissection or has had an aortic aneurysm, that the family is at risk, and how to carry that forward and what to do with those family members is really not known. So one of the other things besides the Think Aorta, Think Family is that we've broadened it up to, as Karen mentioned, other inherited diseases, so that people don't think we're just trying to, help ourselves. We're really trying to just help patients in general. And if they latch aortic disease onto heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and cancer, they'll realize that as far as the heritable diseases, this is one that everybody should just look out for. And then the last piece is what Karen mentioned about having us, as the Think Aorta International campaign, begin to deputize individual surgeons and individual aortic centers and all the healthcare practitioners, and give them an opportunity to take a truncated version of this poster that you see behind me and hand it out and give this information to all of the people that they work with, some of whom are going to be educated just from this card. And then on the back of the card is information for more information and this sort of thing. And all of this is really a continuation of what was started in the UK by Gareth and others, and that is deputizing all of us to carry the message forward. And I want to thank you again, Gareth, for both including me on the Think Aorta campaign and including me on this day's talk. Thank you again.
Ben, it's an absolute pleasure, and you have done wonders with Think Aorta in the US. And yes, I was going to talk about the Think Aorta trigger cards today. There's the front, which is the familiar Think Aorta logo. On the back is all the diagnostic information from the posters and the hotline number for the specialist aortic center. And we've had a number of deaths in the UK because the emergency department just didn't know who to call in order to get their patients in for surgery. And so the centers have started setting up hotline numbers, and we now have funding to produce these cards. Any aortic surgery center in the UK that has a hotline number can have 1,000 cards to give out to their referring hospitals. And that's gone live this month with our first center in London. And I know the great thing about this is it didn't start here with the UK campaign. So the campaign started here, but this trigger card idea actually came from Think AORTA US and actually from Pedro Catarino at Cedars-Sinai in LA. So you can see that as a global movement, we're now starting to cross-fertilize the ideas and get things like this coming back the other way, and that was a huge benefit. I'm sure these cards are going to save lives around the world with centers sending them out. So that's fantastic. And we're a very loosely organized movement, because we are a movement. There isn't any really central control. We have shared values, we have shared aims, and it's wonderful to see how teams in different countries just pick up the ball with Think Aorta and run with it and do the thing that is most appropriate to their healthcare environment. And one of the really exciting things that we've done in the last couple of months is I've seen the poster that's behind Ben there on the wall, translated into Spanish, translated into Catalan, and translated into Portuguese for Brazil. That poster is now available in the native language of 25% of the world's population. That's 2 billion people. And so as an enabler of getting the message out there, that is a phenomenal thing. We have the materials in the language to reach 1/4 of the world already, and we'll tackle the other 3/4 as we go. All right. So brilliant. Thank you, Ben. I'm just going to see if there's anything else I wanted to slot in here before we go to some more of your US colleagues. There is actually, if you don't mind. I'll share my screen again, and then I'll come back, Karen, and you can introduce your other US colleagues if that's all right. Let me share this. So something else that's happening today, as well as the Brazil party and everything else on AD Awareness Day, is that right back in the beginning in 2016, a UK charity called Heart Research UK very generously funded the production of the first ever Think Aorta posters that we distributed to our emergency departments here in the UK. And it's some years since that happened now. So this summer, Heart Research UK decided that they would study what had happened to that investment and what the impact of Think Aorta had been. And today they've published their Think Aorta impact report. So we'll be putting it up on the global website later, thinkaorta.net. But it's a nice independent study of what has Think Aorta achieved in the UK and Ireland since the campaign was launched. So I'd commend that to you for a read, because actually you'll see the kind of things that Think Aorta can achieve in a particular country. And it identifies things we've done with paramedics, things we've done in EDs. It identifies how the campaign got the attention of the UK government and what that led to. So there's some really powerful stuff in here about what the campaign has achieved. So look for that on the website later. And we're very grateful to Heart Research UK for commissioning this study and for publishing it, and for doing so on Aortic Dissection Awareness Day, which is the best day of the year to do so. So that's another thing that's happened today. The cards I've talked about. I did quickly mention paramedics. This week, we will be also adding to the thinkaorta.net website a podcast for paramedics. We now have a Think Aorta podcast for the paramedic community to go with our Think Aorta podcast for the ED community. And we produced this over the summer with the Welsh Ambulance Service here in the UK. And they very kindly agreed to it becoming a public resource for any paramedic. So it was released last Thursday to all paramedics in Wales as part of their continuing professional development. And we are releasing it this week for public distribution for all 20,000 paramedics in the UK to teach them to Think Aorta. The gentleman on the right here is Simon Rose. He is our Think Aorta paramedic lead. And this is Simon at AD Awareness Day UK last week, speaking about the work that he leads to educate paramedics to Think Aorta. And Simon features on the podcast as the clinician who knows what he's talking about aortic disease. And I tell my patient story because I come from Wales, so it was appropriate that we did that with the Welsh Paramedic Service. So watch out later in the week for the Think Aorta Paramedic podcast. The third thing we're launching this week is together with Imperial College in London, and to kind of connect us up a bit more, I suppose, and help us to share a bit more around the world about Think Aorta, we are creating a community of practice online. It's used as a platform called Health Shared, and we've got 2 QR codes. Aortic Dissection Awareness UK and Ireland uses the top one for a general community for talking about aortic dissection, but the QR code at the bottom is ours for the global Think Aorta campaign. So if you're interested or involved at all in the global Think Aorta campaign, you can follow this QR code, go to the community, and there we can post our Think Aorta content, we can ask questions, we can share as a community everything we want to about Think Aorta around the world, and that will be a platform and a resource for us to all stay connected. So please go join that up. It's available now, and I will see you on the Think Aorta Global Community of Practice. And one of the things the researchers at Imperial College in London want to do is study what the benefit of these communities of practice are for disease-based organizations. So there is a research element that will look at how much value does this community of practice give us as a global disease-focused movement. So I've got so many more things happening. Just to say that one of our partnerships this year as Think Aorta has been with the device company Terumo Aortic. Terumo Aortic make Dacron grafts. They made the Dacron graft that is currently in my chest, keeping me alive every minute of every day. And this year we've partnered with them on a series of webinars called Journey Through the Aorta. where leading surgeons talk us through the aorta from the root all the way down to the iliacs and talk about surgical techniques and problems and tips. And it's absolutely fascinating if you're interested in aortic surgery. So we partnered with Terumo for the whole year. The next episode of Journey Through the Aorta is on the 30th of September at 5 p.m. UK, and you can register for it here at terumoaortic.com/journey. If you want to look for it on Twitter, it's #AorticJourney. And that again is it's a privilege for us to partner with Terumo on Journey Through the Aorta. And we will also be adding to this, as well as the surgical sessions, some patient journeys where a surgeon and a patient get together and talk about the patient's journey with aortic dissection. So some more resources coming there. Join us on the 30th of September if you can. Oh, I'm going to see if Brazil. Right. I'll come back to Brazil in a minute. So all of those are things happening right now that you can get involved in with Think Aorta and basically develop your understanding. And the whole principle here, as you can start to see, is every country is just sharing what it's doing. It's just moving the campaign forward. And we really have this tremendous global momentum. Now, I'm wondering which way to go, actually. Karen, is it all right if I go to Spain and then come back to the US? Okay,
Please.
because Sandra's here, and I'm delighted that Sandra has joined us. Sandra is from Barcelona in Spain. I'll let her introduce herself a bit more. But she recently joined the campaign and is leading Think Aorta Spain and Catalunya. And I'm really pleased to have you here to tell us how that's going and what you're planning, Sandra. So the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you very much, Garrett. I'm here representing the Aortic team. We are a company that are developing a bioresorbable patch that intends to heal the tear during an aortic dissection endovascularly. And yeah, we spoke with Garrett about this fantastic campaign, and we didn't have any doubt about going on board. So we have been collaborating together with Garrett and some Catalan and Spanish scientists and physicians for developing our Spanish and Catalan posters that I'm going to show you if you want. So I'm going to share my screen. Are you able to see it? Do you see it?
Yes.
Yes. So here we have our Spanish poster, and of course we have had a validated translation by physicians. And here you can see our Catalan version. It's pretty similar actually, but you know, here in Catalonia we are very attached, very bound to our language too. So we thought that it was a very good idea to translate it in Catalan too. So right now we are starting to contact some different medical organizations to have our clinical approval. And once we have it, we could include those logos here, and we'll start to generate pamphlets and postcards to think in a feasible strategy to share it with our health care centers community here. So this is where we are right now, Garrett.
Sandra, that's brilliant. Thank you. Would you stop sharing your screen, please, and then we'll.
Sure. Let me go back here. Okay, now.
Thank you. Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you here, and I'm very excited about what's happening in Spain. And I think Sandra works with a gentleman called Jordi, who spoke at our last virtual meetup. And one of the things that really impressed me was Jordi's vision for this campaign, because as soon as he came into the global meetup, he said, Think Aorta Español, if we've got Spanish literature, we can go to every Spanish-speaking country in the world. Jordi's got connections with the US. He's an MIT graduate. He now lives in Spain and runs Aortics. And it's great to be working with Jordi and Sandra on the Spanish campaign. So you can see how how the pieces of the jigsaw are coming together and how this is helping us to tackle aortic disease at a global level. And I'm just really excited about it. So thanks, Sandra. It's great to have that contribution. Let's go back to the US, because there were a few other people on the call from the US that Karen was going to introduce to us to tell us what they're up to.
Great, thanks so much. First of all, I have to say, to see where the campaign of Think Aorta has started, to see how quickly it has developed to where it is today, it's very exciting to be able to be a part of it. So I too thank you as well. Thank you for letting us have that opportunity to join this campaign and see it grow as quickly as it has. I'm going to actually pass the baton to Ben to introduce this next organization, because it is very near and dear to his heart. And I'm saving the final two from the US for me because they're very near and dear to my heart. So Ben, I'm going to let you take it away.
Well, thank you, Karen. So a number of years ago, I had the fortunate incident of meeting a gentleman in a very unfortunate situation, and as well as his wife. I think you can guess who that is. And Dale and Donna Zackets have become very dear friends of mine, and we together have been through many, many things with each other as well as other people. And Dale came to me literally in his first post-operative visit and said to me, "We have questions, we don't understand, we want answers, we want to talk to people, we want to meet people, what's up, how did this happen?" And I said, "I think we need to get you together with some other people." And out of this, after many years, was born an organization which we now call Aortic Bridge at my hospital, which is Maimonides Medical Center in Brooklyn, New York. The hospital itself and all the people I work with, tremendously supportive of our group. And I will hand the floor to Dale and Donna. But first, I would like to thank them both, particularly Dale for having a dissection, to allowing me to use him as a poster child, literally and figuratively, and for Donna, who has just been one of the most amazing people that I've ever met. So Dale and Donna, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I don't know if I want to thank Dale for having the dissection, but okay. Anyway, yeah, we were so happy that Dr. Udelman decided to get together with us and form this very small local group that we call Aortic Bridge. But we get an awful lot done in that group in the way of meeting quarterly. Some of the things that we do are we meet quarterly at Maimonides Medical Center, and these meetings are attended by dissection survivors, aortic aneurysm patients, their family members and friends. Physicians and healthcare providers are also in attendance to help answer any questions about medical or psychological concerns that they may have. I know after Dale's dissection, we just had a bazillion questions. And we also really wanted to get together with other people. You know, there's nothing like being able to network and relate to people who've gone through the same things. So that was really what we were looking to find. And it was just so great that Dr. Udelman was
Very acceptive.
excited to get this started with us. And we think we've done a lot of good. I know that Dale really feels great about being able to talk to other survivors when they're so anxious and nervous before and just after their surgeries. So
Right.
I'll let you talk about
Well,
a little bit.
today's a very important date for me because it was September 19th, 2012, when I had my dissection. And that's when I met Dr. Udelman, you know. And with Dr. Udelman's permission and the patient's permission, I go into their rooms and visit with them after surgery, before surgery, and just discuss the things that I went through and what they can expect. I also follow up with them months later with emails and phone calls, just a quick chat for 1 minute, and it just kind of relieves their anxiety when they hear my voice. And it's so relieving to me also that I take such great pleasure that they answered the call and we talked for that minute, and it makes me feel really good. And so those are some of the things that we have been doing locally for Aortic Bridge. And then, of course, the fundraiser over the Brooklyn Bridge that Karen had so much fun.
was just yesterday. We're actually wearing our t-shirts today. I don't know if you can see them, but we have our Aortic Bridge t-shirts on.
Yes, which will probably become our newest logo because we love the skyline.
And one of the things that was great is when we came together for Think Aorta US, Aortic Bridge was a huge part of that, and bringing all of their patient base to help support that as well was very important. So, and how we've collaborated Aortic Hope and Aortic Bridge is we do offer virtual support group meetings. It started off not necessarily that way. It was once in a blue moon, but then once COVID hit, now everybody is able to join together. So we're kind of slowly seeing a way that these organizations can kind of help each other and support each other. And again, even in having a support group meeting, we're always thinking about the aorta. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in the same manner in which Think Aorta was developed, which was primarily for increasing diagnosis, decreasing mortality rates. This is more for the very important heart-to-heart conversations that patients need to have and then carry forward with their physicians.
Something else, Karen, if I could, Gareth, interrupt across the pond. I don't know how I do that so quickly, but I seem to have done that.
Go for it.
One of the most wonderful things that came out of this is something that Dale alluded to, which was the very dramatic psychiatric and psychological effects of this diagnosis on patients. And when I say this diagnosis, I mean everything from somebody in your family has a diagnosis of aortic disease all the way up through you get a dissection. And I'm very proud of the psychiatrist and the psychiatry department at Maimonides who has teamed up not only with our group, but also with Karen's group and the Global Think Aorta campaign to work on evaluating patients for post-traumatic stress disorder and categorizing patients as my family member was diagnosed, I was diagnosed, I had elective surgery, I am watch and waiting, I had emergent surgery, and all of the associated issues with that. And we published our first paper last year, and we're doing it annually. And thanks to the campaign and thanks to all of this communication that occurs now, we went from 140 responses last year, and we're just nearing 300 responses this year, all anonymous, all simply to tally and to explain to people. And this came out of getting the psychiatry group involved with the patients as soon as I meet them, because it's so dramatic, and not waiting till somebody has issues and not waiting till somebody feels depressed, but saying, listen, this is big time and you're going to go through a lot, and here are all the resources for you. And I'm most proud of this particular issue because the physical stuff, let's face it, that's a lot easier than any of the stuff up above the neck. And that stuff is really complex. So I'm very proud of everybody for not only keeping this group together in all these different ways, but for contributing to this research project, which I think is going to shed a light in a very dark area of this work. And thank you again for everybody for being involved in that.
Thank you.
Man. Thanks, man. And thank you, Dale, for joining us. It's vital that we always remember that Think Aorta is about doing good for patients. But it's not just about a bunch of people who want to do it doing good for patients. It's about patient engagement in the campaign as well. So one of the reasons this campaign is so powerful is that there are so many patients involved in leading it, in sharing their stories, in talking to clinicians about it. And we had about 60 patients together in Bristol on Thursday with about 40 clinicians. And we had 3 patient speakers. One lady, actually, Ben, was speaking to exactly your point. She was 21 years old when she dissected, 7 months pregnant, because she had Marfan's and an undiagnosed aneurysm. And she spoke with such power about the psychological journey she'd been on and the guilt that she'd felt in actually having this condition and it affecting her baby. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. And there were some very hard-bitten surgeons in the room wiping tears from their eyes. And it was such a powerful story. So the power of the patient voice is one of the major things that makes us successful as a Think Aorta campaign. And whenever we talk to a country and they say, we want to do Think Aorta, I say, great, you need to form a team, and you need to form a team of clinicians, but you must find the patients who are willing to lend their voice to the campaign and enable it to have that power. And that's part of the recipe to make this successful. So Think Aorta is a patient voice as much as it's anything else. And that's why it's so great to have you here, Dale. So thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, it's really good. Okay. And I noticed we still have some other US. Karen,
yes, we do. So the next guest that I want to introduce, when you talk about the power of the patient, a lot of individuals in this community tend to call survivors warriors. And I know I personally will say that when this first happened to me almost 7 years ago, we're lucky in that we can turn to Facebook. I think that's where most people are going these days. Since Facebook came around, it has its negative attributes, but in this case, it does have a positive one. And there's a lot of Facebook pages. However, one of the first organizations that I found that actually brought a lot of support for me was Aortic Warriors. And so I'm really pleased and happy to announce Dr. Peter Tsai to talk about what his organization does, because there's really not that many nonprofit organizations in our country that take as much time and hard work to build their boards, to build their initiatives, and to work on a volunteer basis in this community that really service the entire general community versus just an individual who might have a particular syndrome or condition. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Tsai, and hopefully he can tell you a little bit about his organization and how they think aorta every day.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Karen.
Peter.
Thank you for inviting me here. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all again. Dale and Doc, Duran. It's been a while. I think for me to really start talking about what aortic were and where it came about, I probably need to, if I can, is it possible to share screen? Oh, it's not on. Let's see here. I've been having some difficulty. How about now? No. Yes. Okay. Let me see if I could do that. Can you see it now? Sure. Doesn't allow me to share. Okay, it's okay. I can't get it to share, it seems.
If you have things that you'd like the community to see, we can maybe talk about it, and then we can
Does that work?
Share it offline.
No.
There we go.
That one works? Almost. Okay. All right. I think I was trying to display a picture of me in 2009 when I was in the hospital. I have all these pipes in my face and cords, and I was strapped to the table. 2009. Back then I was a bodybuilder, and my aorta ruptured, and they didn't know what was wrong with me for 12 hours because they did the EKG, everything was, and they never looked at the heart again until my brother came to the hospital and says, "Did you guys do an echocardiogram? Don't make a John Ritter out of my brother." And at that time, I had no idea what happened to John Ritter until later on I found out that that's what I was dying from, and from the aortic dissection. That was 2009. 2010, I was just trying to learn how to walk again. I don't anymore. Try to do something different, and 2013, I just because I feel, you know what, we this doesn't mean that we have to stop living. Our motto: never stop living, stay strong. That's where we came. And our our goal is to reduce the mortality rate from 1% to 20%. We can do that. We'll educate and create awareness across the world so that people know about aortic dissection. People don't get misdiagnosed for a heart condition. As you know, that's on. And so after I survived, it was difficult to me because I'm so happy there saw all these different organizations now. The awareness, educate the people around the world so that no survivor feel alone. And these are the main goals of Aortic Warriors. So 2004, created aortic dissection awareness. And we did do it in our 6th year. Not thinking a global movement. I think it's an awesome way to create more awareness of the aorta across the world. And I want to congratulate you for all the work you've done.
Thank you. I think, Peter, you've been at this a long time, since 2012, and it's great that you're doing so well and continuing in advocacy. I find sometimes people have a dissection and they, they'll make the recovery after 4 or 5 years and move on with their life. And actually, you've been there with Aortic Warriors advocating for what, 9 years now, and long may you continue to do so. So thank you for joining us and sharing us with us this afternoon. That's been excellent. And we apologize to folks watching the connection, that we were having a few technology issues there, but I'm really glad that Peter could join and just share that with us. Good. Karen, did we have one more? Look, the
yes,
US
we did. We do. And one of the things I really appreciate about the changes I've seen in our country over the last 7 years of my surviving my dissection is the diversity that we find in the nonprofit organizations. Every one of us has a little something different to offer, and we have very unique ways in which we can support the community. This offers a variety to patients, survivors, and caregivers to kind of pick and choose what's going to best fit their needs and their personality and wherever they are in their recovery process, which brings me to a very unique and fun organization that Amy Johnson is going to talk about, and that's Rock from the Heart. And right there in the title, it should tell you it's got a lot of fun involved. So Amy, why don't you take it away, share your organization and how you think aorta.
Thank you, Karen. And I have to say that Karen is a big reason that we are as big as we are in a few years, and I'll explain kind of why that happened. But it all got started when my husband, Pete, went for his routine annual physical that was very important to all of us. And it was a quick, almost procedural phone call after that that really turned our lives upside down. When we were told Pete, who was healthy without symptoms, had a 5-centimeter aortic aneurysm and aortic stenosis that would require surgery. Phone hangs up, they tell you somebody will call you to make a cardiologist appointment in 2 weeks, and you're left there. I felt like a marshmallow. I heard that and I went to Google, and you feel that when all the strength leaves your body, you just start to shake. We were completely consumed by the news, but we felt utterly helpless to understand what it meant for Pete and for our family. Very, very fortunate to be in Minnesota, where we have some of the best. Pete immediately called into the clinic and said, I need to talk to my doctor now, who got us in, within a couple of hours. And before we even sat down, he looked at Pete and he looked at me and he said, this is a good thing. We found it and it's all fixable. He sat us down, he drew some pictures, and that moment changed for us. We know that doesn't happen for everybody. What happens? Well, what I did afterwards, I made the mistake of going to the internet and looking for more information about aortic aneurysms and the valve. You had the bicuspid valve. And what did we find? Doom and gloom, horror stories. But Pete's was a good story. It was a successful story. And with Rock from the Heart, we wanted to share that hope that we were eventually able to find. There's so much misinformation. There was such a lack of resources about aortic conditions. we were frustrated and disheartened by how much conflicting information we received from where you find different online doctors and websites. When we know people are going to be desperate for answers during those initial days from diagnosis. Knowledge is powerful when it comes to your health, and aortic conditions are no exception. So we wanted to share the details of our journey so people aren't left searching for answers. I always go back to Pete's quote, and I'm just going to quote him what he says because he hides in the other room because he lets me be the voice of Rock from the Heart. But he says, when I was lying in bed after surgery and thought about how lost and disconnected we felt through this whole process, I looked to my wife Amy and said we should do something to help so fewer people have to go through what we did. Well, Pete's a drummer, and his biggest concern with his surgery was, when can I play my drums again? After my surgery, when I get through this, how long before I can go down to my drum kit and drum? So that was where we got this idea for Rock from the Heart. And because he's a musician, we started with the idea to maybe have just some kind of a small local awareness event. But it got bigger. And then when we found out that one of our favorite bands also had a drummer who had a bicuspid aortic valve and needed surgery, that would be Night Ranger. I looked at Pete and I said, why don't we just book Night Ranger? And we did for the first Rock from the Heart. Through a fellow survivor, local musician, Patty Peterson, introduced me to Aortic Hope. So I reached out to that organization. Well, then all of a sudden they're talking about coming to Minnesota for this event. So I said, well, we better make it 2 days. And instead of just rocking and rolling, we should have an education symposium the day before. And that's how that whole 2-day model of education, companionship, collaboration, networking on Friday, and rock and roll on Friday. By bringing this together, we know that being aware can save lives. And when families know the basics about aortic aneurysms and dissections, they can then be the best possible advocate for themselves. So music was just a unique way to get that knowledge in. And you wouldn't believe how many people come to an event just for the concert, and then they look us up on the internet and they go, oh my gosh, my brother died from an aortic dissection, or my cousin was just diagnosed. We didn't know. We thought we were alone. And you think you're alone until you realize you're not. I've been reading Dr. Udelman. I don't know pronounce your name right or wrong, but I just read one of the interviews that you did. And the biggest thing that stuck out to me was what you said about that how many of these unexplained sudden deaths out there were not a heart attack. We're not the widowmaker. We're not a heart attack, but without an autopsy, without a scan of that aorta, how do we know? And that's where that family information and that understanding your family medical history really, really becomes important. I loved how you said that it's quick to blame their size, their weight, their eating habits, and not look. I mean, my husband had no symptoms. He had a heart murmur since he was a child and was always told it was innocent. And thankfully, his astute primary care doctor heard that murmur, the new doctor, and said, we need to take another look at that and sent him for that echocardiogram that saved his life. Through that clinic does a partnership with the Minneapolis Heart Institute. They just transfer you right over, where we met Pete's cardiologist, who introduced us to Dr. Kevin Harris at the Minneapolis Heart Institute, who is also a member of the International Registry of Acute Aortic Dissection, or IRAD. So he actually was instrumental in bringing together a multidisciplinary aortic dissection team that goes around the state and has that. They basically list the steps. When something presents as an aortic dissection, you do A, B, C, and D. And they go around Minnesota, and that has been adopted in other areas. So we're really, really honored to have him be a strong part of Rock from the Heart. And he helps us put together the Minneapolis Symposium and bring some of the best and the brightest from the area to speak. The one thing we learned from our events, the symposium piece of it, is that the doctors have told us is they learn as much from the patients and the caregivers as we learned from them. In our journey, Pete was diagnosed and he was borderline, so he watched and waited for 2 years. Well, what do? You live on a roller coaster every 6 months. Okay, no surgery. You go down, you live your life, and then as that 6-month appointment date comes up, here comes that anxiety again. So Pete's cardiologist goes, I had no idea you were living your life on this emotional roller coaster. After this diagnosis, he goes, I'm going to think differently when my patients come in for that appointment. And I'm going to remember that and approach that appointment maybe a little bit differently, understanding what's going on. We talk about that mental health aspect of what happens above the neck. Also, based on feedback we've gotten, we also have mental health and the heart presentations at all of our events now, because that's such an important piece of it. Rock from the heart, really our goal. Yes, we have fun by the rock and roll and being able to see a survivor out there living a good life after a successful aortic repair surgery. But we know we don't have all the answers. So collaboration is incredibly important to us with groups like Think Aorta and Aortic Hope, because together we can reach more people of our own unique markets, our own unique communities. So we like to see ourselves as a funnel of information. We like to help, sift through some of the good and the bad and a lot of unhelpful information that's out there and be a resource. We don't have the answers, but we can say, you know what? Aortic Hope has these support groups that you can talk to. If you've lost someone, here's a group you can go to. If you're unsure what to do at this stage of your diagnosis and recovery, we want to be able to get them to the information that they need. And music is a way for the community to get together and spread awareness about aortic health. Even if they come to one of our events just to hear the music, we know that there's the possibility that they're going to leave with a resource or a reminder that their heart health is more important than we often think, and to be advocates for their health. We want to help people see that aortic disease, that a diagnosis of aortic disease is not a death sentence, and people can often return to their normal lives quicker than they realize. We hope that by sharing our story with others gives people that inspiration that can often be hard to come by. That's kind of our story in a nutshell, but it really is about collaboration, finding unique ways to reach out to the community to tell the story about aortic disease, aortic dissection, how to advocate for your health. What are those signs in my own family history or my own medical history that can help lead to a good future? So thank you for the opportunity to be here today. We love everything that you're doing, and we hope to do more in the future.
Brilliant.
I have to say, one of the things that I love about what Amy's organization does is she ends up having a captured audience, because there are plenty of people that purchase these tickets to see a concert, which Aortic Hope will be attending the next one in February. I will be bringing extra clothes in the event I'm snowed in again. But you have a captured audience of individuals that will very rapidly learn that this could happen to them. And I know for a fact they will leave thinking, I wonder what happened to my father when they said he dropped dead suddenly. I wonder if my grandmother's brain aneurysm might be connected. Maybe we should start talking about that. Maybe I should mention these things to my physician, and they don't realize they're thinking aorta, think family, but at least that message subliminally has been delivered to them. So that's one of the things that was my greatest takeaway from your event, other than having a lot of fun and laying on Prince's sofa that you had on hand in your event. So yeah.
Thank you. Amy, thank you so much for joining us from Rock from the Heart and telling us the story. I'd not heard that before. And it's a brilliant example of how Think Aorta is an umbrella. It's a brand that brings us all together. We have different things that we do. We have different ways of expressing that message, of getting involved in aortic care. But actually, above it all, is this global movement and brand that we can all inhabit and do our thing. So, and today's a great example of that. We've got different countries, different organizations, all coming together under a Think Aorta brand, and it's good to see. And I think that the intention is to grow that, so that Think Aorta will become an enabler and also a meeting point for people involved in dealing with the challenges of aortic disease. I'm going to just continue in the last few minutes our little tour around the world. So we've heard from all over the US, we've heard from Spain and Catalunya, from the UK and from Ireland. I'm just going to check whether we have anybody from Brazil with us, or whether they're too busy partying and I have to tell you about them.
I think you might have to tell us about that.
I think they're too busy partying. If there was one place I wanted to be today, it was at the Brazilian launch party of Think Aorta, but COVID didn't make that possible. So let me just share with you one slide and tell you what's going on in Brazil as we speak. Let me go for this. Yes, here we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So as I mentioned, Think Aorta Brazil launches today. It's called Pense Aorta in Portuguese. On the left here, this is Dr. Grace Malate. She's a vascular surgeon in Sao Paulo, the capital of Brazil. And she works with Andre Brito Quiroz, who is a vascular surgeon in Salvador, which is the other side of Brazil. And they are the two leaders of the, he's also a vascular surgeon, they are the leaders of the Pense Aorta campaign. But as you can see, this is an event they held on Friday in Salvador. They've got their T-shirts and the poster in Portuguese, and they had a huge group of physicians and patients together to launch Think Aorta Brazil on Friday in Salvador, and today they're doing the same in Sao Paulo, which is why I guess Grace isn't able to be with us, because they'll probably still be in full swing with their launch event. So Pense Aorta is brilliant because Brazil has a population of 212 million people. So judging by incidence statistics, that probably is 12 to 15,000 aortic dissections a year, and they have a significant problem of misdiagnosis. One of the Brazilian government's responses to the COVID pandemic was to make a large investment in CT scanners for hospitals across the country. And one of the things that Grace and Andre hope to do is take advantage of that to focus the message on improving diagnosis of aortic dissection by getting patients with a suspected dissection straight into one of the new CT scanners. So things are improving in Brazil for aortic dissection patients as a result of Pense Aorta. And I'm sure you're going to see a great deal about this campaign. They have a website, which is on the slide here. We will be linking the main Think Aorta website to that, and we'll be featuring some of their news about the campaign and the launch. They produced a Think Aorta animated film. It's in Portuguese with English subtitles, but again, that's a really nice piece of professional work that they chose to launch the campaign to Brazil with, and we'll feature that on the website too, so anybody's interested can go and have a look at what they've done. So yet another significant national Think Aorta campaign with a particular flavor tailored to the Brazilian healthcare environment, and that's the way we do things. And Grace and Andre are just two brilliant people to lead this campaign. It's already got the backing of the Brazilian Vascular Society, who have given very strong support to the campaign across the country. And that's the third ingredient, I suppose. We talked earlier about patients, a strong team to lead the campaign, and the backing of the professional medical societies. Those are the ingredients that make the campaign successful in a country, along with the simplicity and consistency of the Think Aorta message. So do have a look, see what our friends in Brazil are doing. I'm sure they will come and tell us more next time we meet up. But I'm very, very excited about the launch of Think Aorta Brazil today. There's, let's move further around the world. Some of you will know that in August, the legendary New Zealand cricketer Chris Cairns had an acute aortic dissection and had a really rough journey, actually, in hospital. And I was just overwhelmed today when Chris, for Aortic Dissection Awareness Day, released a short video on Twitter, just thanking the hospital and the staff who'd looked after him and saved his life from aortic dissection, and talking about the fact that he's starting a new chapter in his life. Chris had a spinal stroke during his aortic dissection journey, so he has a tough road of recovery ahead of him. But it was great to see him back online today. We've retweeted his video from Think Aorta Global, so do have a look at that. And we wish Chris every success in his recovery journey. You know, actually, I think his physical fitness and the positive mental attitude that made him such a success in international cricket will stand him in very good stead as he faces this recovery journey from his dissection, his spinal stroke. So I doubt Chris is watching because it's the middle of the night in that part of the world. But if you're watching afterwards, Chris, good luck and Godspeed with your journey. It's great to have you as a part of this elite club of aortic dissection survivors, and we hope that you'll spread the word in Australia and New Zealand of the need to think aorta. Gosh, that's a very quick tour around the world. Finally, in the last minute, if you are watching and thinking, how can I bring Think Aorta to my country? Then it's very simple. Get in touch, info@thinkaorta.net. We have some very simple guidance documents. They're not long. We have a guide to how to bring Think Aorta to your country. And we have some brand guidance about what you can and can't do with the Think Aorta brand and materials. We will share those with you. We will have a Zoom call, and we'll give you some advice about how to get your country campaign started. Then it's up to you. But we have a proven country deployment model, and as you've seen today, that's been used in the US, it's been used in Brazil, it's worked in the UK and Ireland, it's being used in Spain, and we want to roll that model out to as many countries as we possibly can in the coming years to get the world thinking aorta. That's all I have to say, I think, from my position as Global Think Aorta campaign lead. Karen, Ben, anything from your side to finish?
Well, we actually were offering a giveaway for people that were watching in the community. So I'm going to check in to see if we've received any of those names. And what we might do is announce those winners after this event. And then we're also going to check to see if we have any comments or questions. Greg Aaron Greenberg with Aortic Hope is with us today as well. And I'm going to let them go ahead and let us know if there's anything we need to talk about from the community.
Thanks.
I don't unfortunately see any questions that came in from the community. I know we had some the last time, but it was very focused for people wanting to know what Simon was doing on the paramedic side. But I don't see any questions right now.
That's because they're partying for AD Awareness Day. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, this one was put on a busy day for a lot of people, and obviously a Sunday. But hopefully people will watch even after the fact and see what each country brings to the table as far as this global initiative.
I think from Ben and I, we're just super excited, and Ben, I'll let you talk too. We're just really very excited to see how all of these countries and all of the nonprofits within our own countries or organizations might be able to come together. As you said, it really does clearly appear as though Think Aorta, since that's what we're all doing, is the tip of that umbrella, and we're all able to fulfill the mission of thinking about the aorta in our own unique and special ways. So for me, and I know for our organization, we're very excited to be part of this and just looking to see where the next year takes us all. Ben?
Definitely, Karen. I second everything everyone's saying. And then something that Gareth goes back to every time we talk, which is that if this message is not being brought to the world by the patients who are suffering with and dealing with and have survived this most incredibly challenging situation, then anybody else speaking about it is different. And I think Amy can probably back me up on that with regards to her husband and Sandra and as well as Donna, who suffered tremendously sitting in a hospital at 2 a.m. by herself, waiting for someone to come and sit with her. But really what I'm saying is that the partnership is really 3/4 patients and 1/4 everybody else. I'm happy to be working with you guys. I take tremendous inspiration. And then the second thing that I want to say is echoing something that Karen said, and we talk about a lot in our board meetings, which is that the model that was needed, absolutely needed in the UK and Ireland is not exactly the model that's needed in the US, is not exactly the model that's going to be needed in Catalonia or in Brazil or in Minnesota or in Spain. And the point is that the message is the message, but you can take this as long as you clear it with Gareth and make it clear that we're carrying it forward and branching it out to reach more people about more topics, all related back to the ultimate thing of saving lives. I think all of us will be very happy to institute whatever changes and ideas you have back in our own home organization. and I look forward to hearing what everybody does with it in the future. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Karen. And I think it's spot on. You know, we are an organic movement. We're learning as we go along. We have this wonderful, high-profile global brand, and we have a team of very talented people who know their local environment and can tailor it to what their country needs. And that's that, together with the fact that 3/4 of those people are patients, is the secret to our success. So we'll continue in that vein. I think AORTA is going from strength to strength, and it's a tremendous inspiration to all of us to see what's being achieved. We've got a lot of work to do, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you and with the new people who are going to come and join the party as a result of events like this, until we turn that Think Aorta world map of ours red all over it, as we've done campaigns in every country where we're needed. So thanks, friends, for joining us today. Thank you to our speakers for your contributions and your sterling work. Thank you to our guests for joining us to find out more about Think Aorta. Please do keep in touch. And if you want to know more as a result of what you've heard today, contact us. And go to whoever's nearest you in the world, and we'll be happy to bring you on board and help you to develop Think Aorta further where you live and work. Thank you.
Yay. Good job.
Great job, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, Laurie, do accept our condolences as an association. You must be devastated. And I think those of us who've been on that journey and lost a loved one to this horrible disease, our hearts go out to you. And we also know that you will understand more than most what we're trying to achieve here. Please send our best to your children too, and keep in touch. We'd love to stay in touch with you. Thank you.
So Lisa is specifically looking to make connections within her own personal community. I believe it's Missouri, and I'm sorry, Kansas City. Hey, I was probably not close. Okay, so she has aortic disease right now and is looking to make connections. You know, there was a time where there were some hospitals offering in-person support groups. Obviously, with COVID, that ceased. I don't know if anyone is starting them now. That is the first place that you can check. You can also always join our support groups if you haven't already through aortichope.org. And hey, why not start one on your own? You're a patient, you're a survivor. You can always talk to your local hospital and see who else might be in need of the same help that you're looking for. It's really not very, very difficult to start at all, and you could possibly meet outside or refer other individuals to come online with you into one of our support group meetings, which would be the first Tuesday of every month at 2 p.m. and the last Wednesday at 7 p.m. all Eastern Standard Time.
The other thing I will say is, unfortunately, the person who has the greatest access to patients who've had aortic disease are the surgeons, unfortunately. And if you can find a sympathetic surgeon, or at least a reasonable surgeon, or if you want me to try to find one, please reach out, and that would definitely get you access to some people in your area.
And I would also like to add that Karen just brought up with Lisa's question, utilize Facebook. I know that Lisa is part of the Facebook community and some of the forums. Utilize that and reach out and pose that question of, I'm in this area, because every single one of us has made some sort of patient connection with somebody in our remote area because of the forums and reaching out and saying, I'm here. Would anybody like to meet for lunch? Would anybody like to talk? So I would utilize those forums to your advantage the best way possible.
means if you're on one of the coasts, on the West Coast, we tend to refer people to Aortic Warriors. East Coast, New York area, they go to Aortic Bridge. Everybody pretty much that has aortic aneurysms or bicuspid valve, we're sending them over to Rock from the Heart. So as Greg mentioned, there's many different places that you can develop possibly that one-on-one or a few individuals to connect with, but just you need to check a lot of them out and just see which hat fits best for you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Julian. I'm glad you were able to join us virtually. I know Julian was with us in person in Leicester 2 years ago for Aortic Dissection Awareness Day. He's a strong supporter of the association. Glad you enjoyed it, Julian. Hope we'll catch up with you soon. Excellent. Thank you, folks, very much. Thank you for your questions and comments. I'm just very inspired. Happy Aortic Dissection Awareness Day to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, family.